My wife cheated. I didn't confront her. I made her confront herself. I used to believe my marriage was unshakable. Lisa and I had been together for 10 years. Strong, steady, predictable. I never doubted her. Never had a reason to. We weren't perfect, but I thought we were happy. Then, over the past few months, something shifted. At first, it was subtle, just little things. She'd be glued to her phone at all hours, smirking at texts I wasn't privy to. She started dressing differently. More effort, more perfume. Even on days when she was supposedly just meeting up with the girls. The late nights became more frequent, and so did the excuses. I convinced myself it was in my head. I wanted to believe that. I really did. Then, one evening, my phone buzzed with a message from Emily, our neighbor across the street. "Jack, I've been thinking about sending you this, but you need to know." Attached was a photo. Lisa, on our own doorstep, wrapped around some stranger, kissing him like I had ceased to exist. For a second, I couldn't breathe. My body froze, my mind blank. It felt like someone had reached inside my chest and squeezed until my ribs cracked. My hands shook, my stomach churned, and for a brief, fleeting moment, I wished I had never seen it. Then came the rage. But with it, something else, something colder. I realized I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to accuse or demand an explanation. Lisa had built this lie. She would unravel it herself. I printed the photo. The image was sharp. Lisa's hands tangled in his hair, his fingers pressed into her waist, their lips locked in betrayal. I chose the nicest frame we had, a silver one Lisa loved, and carefully placed it on her nightstand. And then I waited. She came home late, as she had been lately. I was sitting in the living room, pretending to read a book. "Hey, love," she chirped, setting her purse down. "Long day at work." A month ago, I might have asked about her day. I might have smiled, poured her a glass of wine, and listened as she fed me half-truths. Tonight, I just nodded. Lisa walked past me and disappeared into the bedroom, humming softly. I imagined her kicking off her heels, peeling off her jewelry, glancing at her nightstand as she reached for her charger. Then, silence. A long, heavy silence. I didn't move. Then came the sound of her sharp intake of breath. A slight shuffle. Then a loud, unmistakable clatter as the frame was ripped from the nightstand and thrown onto the bed. And then, what is this? Her scream ripped through the house. I stood, making my way to the doorway. I wanted to take my time, let her stew in that raw, suffocating panic. When I leaned against the doorframe, Lisa was standing there, trembling, gripping the frame so tightly her knuckles were white. You got it all wrong," she gasped. Her voice was shaking, but her eyes weren't pleading. They were furious, like I had wronged her. I stepped closer, my voice impossibly calm. "Really? Did you just trip and fall onto his lips?" Lisa's face turned ghostly pale. "Why didn't you tell me right away?" Her voice was high-pitched, incredulous. Why did you do this?" She shook the frame at me. "Why this circus? You should have just asked me." I let out a soft chuckle and leaned in, my voice barely above a whisper. "I wanted you to see what you've turned our marriage into." Lisa opened her mouth, but nothing came out. And then, without another word, she spun on her heel and ran into the bathroom, slamming the door shut behind her. I just stood there, listening to the muffled sound of her sobs. And I smiled. This is where I am now, standing outside that locked door, listening as Lisa crumbles under the weight of her own deception. But what I do know is this: Lisa saw herself tonight. Not in a mirror, not through words, but in a picture she never expected to face. And for the first time, she couldn't pretend. I barely slept. Not that I was restless, far from it. I was awake because I was savoring every moment of Lisa's unraveling. Last night, she had locked herself in the bathroom after seeing the photo on her nightstand. She didn't come out for almost an hour. When she did, she avoided my eyes, walking straight to bed without a word. I waited for the excuses, the pleas, the apologies, but none came. Fine. That just made my next move easier. The smell of coffee filled the kitchen as I leaned against the counter, stirring my cup absent-mindedly. The house was eerily quiet. Lisa hadn't woken up yet. Good. I glanced at my phone. A single message from Emily. Are you sure you want to go through with this? I smiled. I was more than sure. Emily lived across the street, just a short walk from my front door. We had always been friendly, exchanging small talk over the fence or during neighborhood get-togethers. I never expected she would be the one to open my eyes to Lisa's betrayal. She was waiting for me when I arrived, sitting on her porch with a cup of tea in her hands. She gestured toward the empty chair across from her. Rough night? She asked. I chuckled, taking a seat. You could say that. She studied me for a moment, as if trying to gauge my state of mind. I know you're hurt, Jack. I wouldn't have sent that picture if I didn't think you deserved to know. But now that you do, are you sure you want to do this? I nodded without hesitation. I don't just want her to feel guilty, I said, leaning forward. I want him to know what it's like to be exposed. I want everyone to know. Emily exhaled, setting down her tea. Then let's do it right. She pulled out a folder. Inside were multiple printed copies of the photo. The same image of Lisa, in our doorway, tangled in another man's arms. How many should we send? She asked. Enough to make sure it can't be ignored, I said. Lisa's parents were first. They adored me, always telling me how lucky Lisa was to have found someone so steady, so devoted. I wondered what they'd think now. Next, a few of her closest friends, the ones she had been meeting up with on her late nights out. Then, her coworkers. I had no doubt Lisa had played the perfect wife at the office, wearing her wedding ring like a badge of honor. That illusion was about to be shattered. Emily helped me slip the envelopes into a mailbox downtown, far from our neighborhood. No names, no explanations, just the truth, delivered in black and white. Once the last envelope was sent, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. It was done. Now, all I had to do was wait. The fallout. It started around 7 a.m. Lisa's phone, abandoned on the nightstand, buzzed nonstop. At first, she didn't stir. Then, another buzz. And another. Then the vibration didn't stop. Messages, calls, notifications piling up in rapid succession. I sat at the kitchen table, sipping my coffee, watching the bedroom door. Lisa stumbled out moments later, her hair a mess, her eyes half open as she grabbed her phone. I could see her body tense as she swiped at the screen. She froze. Then, a sharp inhale. Her fingers started moving frantically, scrolling through message after message. Mom. Lisa, I just got this photo. Is it true? Friend, did you seriously cheat on Jack? Are you out of your mind? Coworker, your photo is floating around the office. The bosses have already seen it. She let out a strangled gasp. No, 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 no. I could see it. The moment she realized she had lost control, Lisa sprinted into the living room, her face whiter than the walls. Jack, she shrieked, holding up her phone. Why did you send this photo? You have to stop this. I looked up from my coffee, calm, measured. Why? I asked, tilting my head slightly. Let people know the truth. She gaped at me, her breath coming in sharp, shallow bursts. You had no right. I laughed, setting my mug down with a soft clink. No right? I repeated. Lisa, you're the one who brought this into our home. You're the one who did this. I'm just making sure people see you for who you really are. Her hands clenched into fists at her sides. You don't understand what you've done. My job, my family. I leaned back in my chair. So now you care. Lisa opened her mouth, but no words came out. Her phone buzzed again. Another message lighting up the screen. I saw the way her hands trembled. For the first time since this all started, Lisa looked small, weak. I could see the gears turning in her head, scrambling for damage control. But there was no easy fix. No lie that could explain this away. She had spent months weaving a fantasy, a life where she could have her affair and keep her marriage intact, where she could kiss another man on our doorstep and assume no one would notice. Now, the illusion had shattered, and she had no one to blame but herself. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Lisa stood in the middle of the room, clutching her phone like a lifeline, her breath coming fast and shallow. I remained seated, watching her, waiting. Finally, she exhaled shakily, lowering the phone. Jack. Her voice was quieter now, almost pleading. We can fix this. I studied her, taking in the desperation in her eyes. And I smiled. Because we both knew there was nothing left to fix. By midday, it was no longer just whispers between friends or quiet messages behind closed doors. The photo had taken on a life of its own. It started small, a few forwarded texts, a private message here and there. Then, someone, maybe one of Lisa's coworkers or an old acquaintance, took it a step further. An anonymous post appeared in a local online group. When your wife says she works late, but is actually hanging out with someone else. Beneath it was the picture, the one Emily had sent me, the one I had framed on Lisa's nightstand. Lisa, pressed against another man, kissing him on our own doorstep. The comments started pouring in almost immediately. What a disgrace. She did that to her husband? She deserves everything coming to her. The guy got his revenge beautifully. Does she even realize how much her name is ruined now? The more I scrolled, the more brutal they became. People speculated about who the man was. Some claimed to recognize Lisa, calling her out by name. Others shared their own stories of betrayal, rallying behind me as if they had been wronged too. I hadn't even needed to fan the flames. Lisa had done that all by herself. I didn't post the photo. I didn't comment. I just watched as the truth did exactly what it was supposed to. And Lisa? Lisa panicked. I knew the exact moment she saw it. One minute, I was sitting on the couch, checking my phone. The next, I heard the hurried footsteps, the frantic sound of fingers tapping against a screen. Lisa sat at the dining table, hunched over her phone, scrolling so fast that her hand was shaking. I didn't need to see her screen to know what she was doing. She was trying to delete it, trying to make it go away. But it was too late. Every time she reported one post, two more appeared. The internet doesn't forget. She let out a frustrated growl, her phone clattering against the table. Jack. I glanced up lazily from my coffee. You need to stop this, she hissed. I raised an eyebrow. Stop what? This. The posts. The photos. They're everywhere. She grabbed her phone again, her voice trembling. You don't understand. My job, my reputation. People are talking about me like I'm some kind of a cheater. I finished for her. Her mouth opened, then shut. She knew there was no argument left to make. She had built her entire image on being a respectable, professional woman, the hardworking wife, the charming colleague. Now, that image had been obliterated. I leaned back in my chair, sipping my coffee. Maybe next time, don't cheat on your husband where the whole neighborhood can see. Lisa's fists clenched. You're enjoying this, aren't you? I met her gaze, unblinking. I'm enjoying the truth being known. Her breath hitched. For the first time since this all started, she looked genuinely afraid. Not of me, not of confrontation. She was afraid because she had lost control, and she knew it. The phone rang. Lisa snatched it up so fast, I thought she might drop it. She barely got a word in before I heard the voice on the other end, low, serious. It was her boss. Lisa, you need to come to my office. Now. Lisa swallowed hard. I'm working remotely today. I can just... Now, Lisa. The call ended. She stood frozen, her face pale. Slowly, she turned to me, her lips parting as if she wanted to say something. Maybe to beg, maybe to blame. I didn't say a word. She grabbed her keys and left. An hour later, she was back. The moment she stepped inside, I knew how the meeting had gone. She looked drained, like someone had pulled the life right out of her. Her shoulders were slumped, her breathing uneven. She dropped her bag onto the floor and just stood there. I got fired, she said quietly. I took another sip of coffee. Oh? She let out a bitter laugh, running a hand through her hair. That's all you have to say? What else is there to say? I shrugged. They didn't want a scandal, did they? Her eyes burned with fury. You ruined me. I raised an eyebrow. No, Lisa. You ruined yourself. She clenched her fists at her sides, her entire body trembling. I could almost see the wheels turning in her head, the desperation mounting. She had lost everything, her reputation, her job, the respect of her peers. She needed someone to blame. and she had chosen me. By the next day, Lisa had packed a suitcase and left the house. I didn't ask where she was going. I didn't care. But she wasn't finished. A few days later, I received a notice. Lisa was trying to sue me for defamation, as if the truth was somehow my fault. I didn't even need to call a lawyer. The moment the news spread, it became clear. Lisa had no case. Most people were on my side. Even those who had once been her friends kept their distance, unwilling to get caught in the fallout. But Lisa? Lisa fought. She threw everything she had into trying to salvage her image. She posted apologies online, blaming the stress of work, blaming emotional neglect, blaming everything but herself. She wanted sympathy. She wanted people to forget, but they didn't. Emily made sure of that. She had been watching from the sidelines, making sure Lisa didn't twist the narrative. She kept records, screenshots, messages, proof that this wasn't some one-time mistake, but a pattern of deceit. Lisa fought, but she lost. The case was dismissed before it even had a chance to go anywhere. And just like that, Lisa faded into the background. No job, no support, no control, just a shadow of the person she had once pretended to be. People often talk about karma as if it's something that takes years to catch up. But sometimes, karma is instant. Lisa had spent months, maybe longer, sneaking around, convinced she was untouchable, that she could live two lives, one with me, one with him, without consequence. Now, in just a matter of days, that entire illusion had come crashing down. She thought she could get away with it. She thought she could keep everything. But now, she had nothing. And me? I was finally free. The house was quiet. For the first time in years, I had real silence. No tense conversations, no forced smiles, no wondering where Lisa was or who she was really with. She was gone, and she wasn't coming back. Her name still lingered in messages and whispers, a ghost in the circles we once shared. But the damage had been done. She had tried to fight, tried to make me the villain, but in the end, it didn't matter. She lost her job, her reputation, and whatever fragile hold she had on the life she built on lies. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't spending my days wrapped in suspicion or my nights waiting for a door that never opened at the right time. I had myself again, and without Lisa around, I started to rediscover what that actually meant. I threw myself into work, but not in the way I had before. Not as an escape, but as a way to rebuild. Mornings became easier. I no longer hesitated before checking my phone, dreading what I might find. I stopped waiting for excuses and lies. I started going to the gym more, not just to clear my head, but because I wanted to be there. I picked up old hobbies, things I had neglected over the years, reading late into the night without the weight of an empty bed beside me, fixing up small projects around the house that Lisa had always said I would get to later. I found peace in the little things, making coffee in the morning without rushing, taking long walks just because I could, sitting outside as the sun set without anyone questioning where I was going next. And, strangely, I started spending more time with Emily. It started small, just occasional check-ins. Emily had been there from the beginning. She had been the one to show me the truth, the one who had stood beside me as everything unraveled. And though I had been too caught up in the chaos at the time, I hadn't forgotten that. One day, I stopped by her house to return the favor. She answered the door with a cautious smile. "Jack?" "Hey," I said. "Just wanted to say thanks. For everything." She tilted her head. "You sure? You seemed pretty happy handling things yourself." I smirked. I was. But still, you didn't have to help. And you did. For a moment, she just looked at me, then nodded. "Come in," she said. That first visit turned into another, then another. Emily had a way of making things feel normal. It wasn't forced conversation or awkward sympathy. She never treated me like I was some broken thing she needed to fix. We talked about other things, about work, about old stories, about the neighborhood drama that I had apparently missed while being wrapped up in my own mess. She had a dry sense of humor, sharp but never cruel, and I found myself laughing more than I had in months. Time passed without me realizing it. I stopped seeing her just as the woman who had exposed Lisa's lies. She was just Emily, and I liked being around her. Something more. It happened naturally. There was no dramatic moment, no grand realization. Just small things that, over time, started to feel different. The way our conversations stretched longer each time we met. The way she leaned in when she laughed, her eyes crinkling at the corners. The way she remembered the little things I said in passing. How I liked my coffee, which books I had been meaning to read, the places I wanted to visit someday. One evening, I was helping her carry some things inside after a trip to the store. We lingered in her kitchen, talking as the hours slipped by. I didn't remember how we ended up so close, but suddenly, we were. There was a moment, a brief pause, a breath caught in the air. Then, without thinking, I kissed her, and she kissed me back. It wasn't instant. We took things slow, unsure of what it all meant at first. For so long, I had been trapped in something built on lies. I had forgotten what it was like to want something real. But Emily never pushed. She didn't rush me, didn't expect anything more than I was ready to give. And maybe that's why, over time, I realized I wanted to give more. What started as a simple friendship became something deeper, something real, something honest. And after everything I had been through, that was all I could ask for. For the first time in years, I wasn't looking back. I was looking forward. And I wasn't doing it alone.